Hey guys, it's Robin and welcome to my channel. So today we are going to be doing another crime series video. I'm really excited to do this video actually because this is the first subscriber suggestion video that I'm going to be doing. One of my subscribers actually suggested that I do a video on this person. Let me do a little shout out to VC. Thank you so much for the suggestion. And yeah, before I get into today's video, I want to tell you guys to give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. And if you're new here, welcome. Hello. Hi. Hello. If you like crime series videos, you're at the right place. And let me just jump right in. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about Andrew Gosden and his mysterious disappearance. Andrew Gosden was born on July 10th, 1993 to his parents, Glennis and Kevin Gosden. He, his parents, and his older sister Charlotte lived in a suburb called Balby, and that's in Doncaster, South Yorkshire, which is in the UK. Andrew actually went to school in the area at the Macaulay Catholic High School. He was in a program called the Young, Gifted, and Talented program, and that was intended for like the top 5% of his class. He was extremely gifted, extremely smart kid. He had 100% attendance, just basically like the perfect student. People described him as an amazing mathematician. They said he was destined for Cambridge. You know, he was a brilliant kid, and like any kid with his abilities, he thought school was a breeze. He felt like he wasn't being challenged enough. And, you know, he had pretty neutral feeling towards school. Like he knew he was very good at school, but he wasn't like super excited, to go to school. That was just how he felt about school. Now, outside of school, Andrew was described as being a lot to himself. Like he kept to himself. He liked staying inside. He liked to do things like read, play video games, listen to music. He listened to his metal bands. He never really wanted to go outside, and he especially wouldn't go outside without telling anyone, which is very important for this story. Now, I just want to clarify that he did have friends. He did have friends that he hung out with and that he had similar interests to him. He wasn't a loner. He wasn't depressed. He wasn't being bullied. They made that very clear in a lot of the articles I read. They made it very clear that he wasn't being bullied. He wasn't depressed. And if he was, no one knew, and there were no signs pointing to it. So that's also very important to the story. I just want to make that clear for you guys. But regardless, he had friends. He had a great family system. He was doing great in school, above average. Both of his parents, they were Christians, but they didn't force it on their kids. So Andrew was actually allowed to stop going to church about 18 months before his disappearance. Also, he was a Cub Scout, but he stopped going to those meetings also a few months before his disappearance. It just seemed like he was going through a transformative phase probably, and that he was just trying to, make his own decisions and his own choice. And his family fully supported him. They let him do these things. They weren't stopping him from being his own person, which is great. So he really had a great home life, great friend life, great school life, just kind of a really well-rounded child. I want you to keep this in mind as I move forward in the story. Now, I've been talking about how he was characteristically, but I want to get into his looks more. He was 14 when he disappeared, but he appeared younger. Some say he appeared like he was around maybe 12 years old. He was a smaller kid. He had really strong prescription glasses. He was deaf in one ear, and he had a really distinctive double ridge in his ear, in his right ear. He had light brown hair, but he was planning on dyeing it black before he disappeared. And this is just so you get an idea of how he looked. I'll add some pictures, of course. When I do missing persons cases like this and cover it, I feel like it's really important to mention how they look, because I don't know if anyone is watching from the UK or wherever he could be found. So I think it's really important. Now on to his disappearance. It was during the summer of 2007 that Andrew went to a summer school for the gifted and talented children. This was called the Excellence Hub. He went there for the summer, he came back, and his parents recalled that he was uncharacteristically enthusiastic about what he had done that summer, at the Excellence Hub. He returns and he pretty much goes back to normal. School starts back and, you know, he's onto his usual routine. He does break his routine though twice. So twice he randomly decides to walk 4 miles from school to home. This is in between the time that school starts and he disappears. Twice he decides to take that 4-mile walk. And so it's September 13th of 2011, and this is 8 days after school has started. You know, his family has an uneventful day that day. They go throughout their day, and at night they eat dinner together, they wash dishes together. Andrew spends an hour with his father, and they're making a computer jigsaw, and then he goes and spends some time with his mom, and they watch a TV show. All is normal. They all go to bed, and they wake up the next morning. The next day, September 14th, 2007, Andrew, he seems a little bit more irritable than usual, and, you know, he has a hard time waking up, which is unusual for him. His mother states that normally he, you know, gets right up and he's on time, but just that morning, for some reason, he just wasn't. Regardless, he ends up getting ready for school and heading out of the house around 8:05. However, instead of catching the bus, Andrew decides to walk to a local park. He stays at that park until he knows the rest of his family has left the house. Now, the reason that this is known that he actually went to this park is, one, a family friend actually saw him at the park. They saw him sitting on a bench. This was a Reverend Alan Murray. And he says he saw him sitting at the park bench, but he did not approach him. And, you know, this is proven that he actually went to the park and then returned back home. Like, nothing happened in between him and that reverend, as far as we know. But it's proved because CCTV shows Andrew actually making his way back home. When he enters his home, he puts his school uniform in the washing machine. He puts his school blazer on the back of a chair, and he changes into regular clothing. His clothing is a black Slipknot t-shirt and jeans. He ends up grabbing his wallet, his keys, and his PSP. And if you don't know what PSP is, like, I grew up with that. It's basically like a portable PlayStation thing. It's a game console, basically, like one that you can carry around, about this big. And that's what he bought with him. He did not bring his passport. He did not bring his charger for his PSP. He left about 100 euros in his drawer that he had saved up, you know, over time from his birthdays. So these small things to me suggested that he expected to return home. I mean, he bought his keys with him. He didn't bring his charger for his PSP. He didn't bring money. I mean, he did get money eventually, but he didn't bring money that extra money he could have had. He ends up leaving his home. He goes to an ATM, takes out 200 euros. He then makes his way to the Doncaster train station, and he purchases a one-way ticket to London at 9:30. CCTV shows all of this. He definitely got on the train. He caught the train to London, and he is shown leaving the London station around 11:20 a.m. That is the last time that Andrew is ever seen. Now, you think that his family would have been notified that he didn't show up to school, but no. Of course, seeing as Andrew has an 100% attendance rate, it's very strange to teachers when he doesn't show up to school. None of the parents notified that he wouldn't be going to school. So, of course, the teachers, they call the parents, but what happens is that they misdial the number and they end up, you know, calling the wrong people, leaving a voicemail to the wrong people, and so the parents are not alerted that their son has not shown up to school. That night, the family sits down to dinner. It's just the parents and his older sister, Charlotte. They are not joined by Andrew, and, you know, they just think that he's maybe playing video games in the cellar or that he's maybe in his room doing homework. They soon discover that actually, no, he is not even in the house. So then they think of the second most logical thing. He might be at a friend's house and just lost track of time. So his parents call his friends, they call neighbors, and they all inform him that Andrew is not at their house. But some of his friends who go to school with him, they say he didn't even show up to school that day. This is the first time that the parents are actually even hearing that their child didn't even show up to school. So they call the police immediately. The police are called around 7 p.m. that night. That's about 10 hours from the time he even stepped foot on the train to, you know, leave his home. Almost like a full 12 hours from when he initially left his home in the morning and, you know, stayed at the park. It's been a long time since he kind of went missing already. If you know missing persons cases, it is so very important. Time is of the essence. So the fact that there was such a long time period in between him leaving and his parents even finding out that he didn't even show up to school, that he was missing, it's already not looking good for the family. So regardless, within 3 hours of them calling the police and finding out that their child is missing, they already have pamphlets, you know, made up, a missing persons pamphlet. Family, friends, police, they're out searching for him, looking for him everywhere they can, you know, trying to retrace the steps he might have taken. Eventually, from, you know, CCTV and other things like that, they find out that he actually, you know, got on a train. And it wasn't until actually 3 days after speaking to a woman who worked for the train station that they found out that he'd gone to London. The woman remembered Andrew especially because he booked a one-way ticket, and she had suggested that he book a round-trip ticket because it was actually less than the one-way ticket, but he declined. He said no thanks, and he just booked the one-way ticket. So she especially remembered him for that. Like, if you could purchase a round-trip ticket for less, like, why wouldn't you? It seems very clear that he wanted to purchase that one-way ticket and make it clear that he did not plan to come back, possibly. Now, to me, that's how it seems, but to his parents or to his father, they didn't find it very, like, you know, that mind-boggling because they have family in London. Like, maybe he wanted to go and hang out with his relatives or stay with his relatives or something. So, you know, the police spent a good portion of the beginning of the investigation actually looking into the areas in which the relatives live, but he just hadn't been in contact with his relatives and he was not found. So now that we've gotten through the entire like story from beginning to end, let's talk about the possibilities of what actually happened to Andrew. So the first thing that they actually like looked into was that he was talking online to someone maybe, and they had decided to meet up in London. Now this would have been completely plausible, but this kid was not interested in the internet, and you know, the police did a very thorough search. They searched not only the only computer in their house, which was his sister's, but they searched the school computers, you know. They searched his PSP online account, everything, you know, and they didn't find any traces of anything. Even his sister said that he didn't seem interested in social media. He wasn't interested in the internet, you know. I'm guessing the only thing he probably used it for was, you know, maybe music or his video games, but that's it. That was like the extent of his interest in the internet. So they really had no evidence to back up those claims. Now, the next possibility that, you know, they kind of thought up is that he went there to see some sights, maybe go to a concert. There was a YouTube event, maybe he went to that. But that also kind of fell apart because, one, if he went to a concert, it'd be very hard to spot him. And also, why did he plan like not to return from that? And it would just be really hard to have him identified just from that, just from a concert. Same thing with the sites, like no CCTV proves that he like, he couldn't be spotted in a crowd. It'd be way too hard. But also another thing that I feel like doesn't support this is like, why wouldn't he just ask? Like, it would make 100% more sense if he had asked them and maybe even they said no, and then he snuck out. But for him to not even try to ask or bring it up to his parents like, oh, I want to go to London to do this, it just doesn't make sense to me. And also about the YouTube event, like he's not interested in social media, so he's not gonna be interested in YouTube. And you know, they said that too, like he just wasn't interested in YouTube. So none of those really seem that logical to me. Another thing is that they thought that maybe he went and he had some, you know, inner demons that he just wasn't telling his family about, and he went to start a new life. And his dad actually said something about that. He states, did he decide to do the Reginald Perrin thing and reinvent himself? Or was there something troubling him that he felt he couldn't tell us? In my heart, I still think his disappearance was a spur of the moment thing. And he says this thing about Reginald Perrin because apparently one of Andrew's favorite television programs was called The Rise and Fall of Reginald Perrin, in which a man fakes his death in order to start a new life. Now, I think that could be a possibility, but for a kid, I just have a really hard time believing that. There's another case that I have that's very similar to this. The Disappearance of Aisha Degree, I'll link it. I covered this case, I'll link it somewhere. But a 9-year-old girl, she just leaves in the middle of the night in like a storm or something, and she just decides to up and leave. She packs her bags, everything, and she has still not been found to this day. And so this is very similar. I feel like this kid did not pack his bags, and in my opinion, it kind of seems like he wanted to, he thought he was gonna come back, but also he only bought a one-way ticket when he could have bought a round. I don't know, but it's very similar to that case in my opinion. And I personally think in both of these cases that these kids met someone, or someone close to their family got to them, told them that they wanted to meet up with them, maybe for this case, London. And from there, they took them, they did something bad to them, and these kids are just never to be seen again. And I feel like that's the most realistic thing, because it just does not, none of it adds up. Nothing adds up. And when things don't add up, like, I cannot for the life of me think of what would possess a young child to just leave their home, especially if their life is perfect, pretty much. Like, in this case, this kid had, you know, he was doing great in school. His family was great, friends, you know, he was able to do things. He was able to make his own choices. He wasn't really, like, I don't really know, of course, the ins and outs. I'm sure his parents definitely had, like, some guidelines, you know, like every parent does for their teenage children. But I don't think he was being abused. There's no proof of that. I don't think that, you know, his parents were maybe keeping him inside. I think it was just a choice of his. Like, he liked to be inside. He liked to do things inside. I don't know, like, I just don't know for the life of me what could possess a child to do something like that. So I honestly think it was an influence from an outside source, someone close to the family, and maybe they just kind of fell into it, and then something bad happened to them from there. I mentioned earlier about the Excellence Hub that he went during the summer, and his parents said that he was very enthusiastic about it, and this was not like in his character to be so enthusiastic about something. So I was thinking maybe he could have met someone from there, possibly an adult, someone he thought he could trust, and then they convinced him to go to London. And, you know, this doesn't have to take place, like, none of these events have to take place online. This could have been all in person. Like, maybe in between those walks, you know, how he started, the 2 times he decided to walk home from school, it could have been during those times. Like, we do not know. We won't know until he's found, until someone confesses, until maybe one day he's maybe 30 and he's like, maybe I should tell someone that I'm Andrew Gosden. Like, we just won't know. And that is just crazy to me. So I'm kind of in between on this one. I'm in between that maybe he just left on his own, and maybe, I mean, my other one is that he left on his own, but then something bad happened to him. Regardless, he left on his own, of his own accord. This is proven. Like, he gets on the train by himself. Like, he does all these things by himself, and cameras prove that. So I really don't know. It's another one of those cases that I really need to be solved, like, now, because it's just really hard to to wrap my head around what possibly could have happened to him, what could have possessed him to leave. Just no idea. But yeah, anyway guys, that is all I have for today. Comment down below what you guys think about this case. Again, shout out to VC. Thank you for the suggestion on this case. I was really interested in it, and I'm going to be following it for, you know, months and months and years to come. Like, I want to get the updates. But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you guys all for watching, and as always, hit that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.